So, ladies and gentlemen, the DA has a new plan. They want to replace BE with a new bill. The new bill, the inclusion bill, seeks to redress a lot of the failings of the BEE. Now, the press conference for the DA year was a little bit weird and wonky. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a lot of racial mentions and race for a party that really focuses on not caring about race. They care a lot about race, but never mind that. The big point of the DA's plan, I guess you could say, is to replace the race-based element of BEE with actual economic status. And instead, what the DA suggests is that rather than make a punishing system in terms of BEE, where if you don't have a majority black-owned company or a company that adheres to all of the rules and regulations of the government, you cannot do business. Instead, you create a system where companies are incentivized to do things that the government deems good and helpful. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have no problem with anything there. I mean, one only needs to look at the BEE reality of South Africa, and this isn't even everything that we can show from the failures of BEE, but just this list alone is quite the indictment, I would say. And I have no problem with creating tangible sort of treats for businesses that are actually trying to do good and is going to use their money to actually develop skills to help smaller businesses get off the ground. And one of the things that they did say is that a lot of the procurement needs to try and focus on small businesses getting in on procurement, in spite of the fact that there's a logistical nightmare there, where a lot of the time when the state does procurement, it does massive amounts of business, something most small and medium businesses would not be equipped to handle. But I think their argument there would be that they still get a big corporation to get the main tender, but then this big corporation has to incentivize or has to be incentivized to try and work with smaller and medium-term businesses or medium-sized businesses to help bring this tender to fruition. This is the DA's main plan. And it hinges on the following: remove race and instead focus on economic situations. So poor people are prioritized, not people based on race. This is something that I have agreed with for a long time, and I still continue to agree with it. Because the majority of people in South Africa that are poor are black. Therefore, if you change the language to poor people rather than black people, you still will help the majority of black people over any other race in the country, but you're no longer playing racial games. Instead, you're now trying to focus on solving the problem. The DA says that the criteria has to be as follows. The weight's 80% for value for money. The taxpayers shouldn't be asked to spend money more than what is absolutely required. I think 20% should focus on the economic inclusion effects of the tender process. I don't even mind the weight here. It's when we get to the economic inclusion that I start to ask some serious questions. Not of all of them, because I have always been a fan of incentive-based economic practices. I do believe that the state has a role to play in giving direction to an economy. The state should not try to direct the economy, but they can absolutely provide direction through incentives. So, telling a business, hey, if you open a factory in a township, we'll give you a discount on your income taxes. If you employ people from these poorer neighborhoods in the town or the city that you operate in, we'll give you some discount on this, that, or the other. So create the incentives rather than using the stick, you use the carrot. And I kind of like that. The big problem here for me that immediately stood out is energy projects and savings and recycling. These are two elements that are just guaranteed failures. You see, because energy projects, the DA made it very clear, they want to focus on sustainability, and therefore we're talking renewable energy. I'm not going to even attempt to explain this to you, but most experts now agree that the Green Deal, the utopia that was sold to us, is we're going to have entire countries just being run on solar and wind farms and no more gases being pumped into the air from coal-fired power plants. That was a lie. And the reasons for it, our power grids cannot really function in accordance with or alongside renewable energy. And it has something to do, and again, forgive me for even trying to explain this to you. I am not an engineer, therefore, this stuff is way above my pay grade. But it has something to do with the frequency of the grid. Renewable energy projects have such a fluctuating frequency that on most days, you cannot actually feed that energy into the grid without risking a complete national meltdown of the entire energy grid. So renewables is a non-starter, not to mention the fact that they are super expensive, beyond belief expensive. Wind farms have to be replaced every 7 years. The real expensive stuff, like the motors, yeah, that's every 7 years. Brand new motors, because for some reason, after 7 years, they explode. Solar farms. Solar farms require a lot of space. That's a lot of forests that you're destroying in order to save the forests. The other problem, solar farms have a maximum lifespan of between 20 and 25 years, after which we don't know what to do with those solar panels because they're very, very toxic. We don't have a way to recycle them. Batteries, again, lots of space, lots of money. We're going to be destroying a lot in order to put them up. It is a pipe dream. We know it's a pipe dream because it's been tried in a lot of other countries. You need only look at Europe and look at the effects that this green hell has had on the European landscape to know it is not sustainable. It's anything but sustainable. The truth is, nothing that the DA suggested in this BEE replacement is necessarily bad. It's good. It sounds good on paper. There's some things that I think does need work and needs to be looked at. The big problem I have with this, it's not the first time I've read any of what is suggested by the DA. In fact, if you focused on the UN at all in the last 20 to 30 years, you would have heard all of this before. You see, everything that the DA just suggested there is in line with two major resolutions from the UN. The first is a resolution called Agenda 21. You can literally just Google that and click on the download PDF, read through it. It's 360 something pages. Someone was paid by the word, I think, because a lot of it is just repeating itself over and over again. But then you have this one as well, which is the 2030 Sustainable Development Resolution. Now, the 2030 Sustainable Development Resolution really is just an evolution of Agenda 21, because after Agenda 21 proved to be completely catastrophic and failed at every single thing that it tried to implement, they needed a new plan, and 2030 Sustainable Development Resolution was the new plan that now pushes the date from 2021 to 2030 with much of the same stuff baked into the cake. The problem, again, the DA says proudly as they stand in front of the nation, this has been tried in other countries and it has proven successful. They don't name a single country where this has been tried successfully, and the reason they don't name any is because there aren't any. The countries that have tried to implement things like Agenda 21, as well as the 2030 Sustainable Development Charter or Resolution, have found themselves in a very weird, precarious position. The first is energy prices go through the roof. Economic development completely stagnates. Jobs are created at a much slower pace. And in fact, the government fails on almost every single one of the resolutions. The UK is probably the most clear-cut example of this. Germany, second, close second, really. France is another great example of this. Every single country that has tried it has brought its nation to the brink of collapse. But the DA, of course, can't say that, because if they say that, they would literally have to tell the South African people, what we're selling you here is a bill of goods that will absolutely sort of speed up the complete and utter collapse of the South African economy. And I'll be honest with you, I think the reason the DA is doing this isn't because they're trying to collapse the South African economy. It's because the DA is the World Economic Forum party. They are party to all of the UN. They're party to the World Economic Forum. They like what the elites of the world stand for. And there's one phrase I want you to become very, very familiar with. It is called neo-capitalistic feudalism. The idea is, well, there's another name for it, stakeholder capitalism, or if you're Chinese, you call it state-owned capitalism. It's all the same thing. The idea is you have the state, And the state chooses a number of private corporations that administers the economy on behalf of the state. So the corporations control the people work for the corporations, and the corporations work for the government, and the government controls the corporations. That is the idea behind it. Because they want communism, but they know that communism fails every single time. And so, new plan. Communism, but with some capitalism sprinkled in for good measure. That way, the government can decide the broad strokes, directions. Everyone needs to get off coal. Let's go. We have the UK, where prices are absolutely soaring. The manufacturing base is absolutely collapsing. And the UK stands on the brink of civil war. But hey, at least we're green now. Of course, they're not green. They're still burning fuel or gas at insane rates. But they have a bunch of solar farms lying around and a bunch of wind farms lying around not doing anything because, again, the frequency thing is a real problem. Or Germany, who closed down all of their nuclear power plants because they're going to go green now. They have a number of solar farms and a number of wind farms that do absolutely nothing, a number of nuclear power plants that are closed down, and they're burning coal and gas at astronomical levels. The only country that doesn't have energy problems, but it has social problems as a result of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, is France. France doesn't have energy problems because it has a bunch of nuclear power plants. About 95% of all its energy is nuclear. So it's actually helping Germany and the UK not collapse whilst collapsing for other reasons, but it's all tied to the same thing. The issue with the DA's main BEE bill, or anti-BEE bill, I should say, is that it doesn't actually do anything new. It just gives the government even more things to administrate. It gives the government even more power to determine what companies can and cannot do. And it ultimately will not have any effect on unemployment or the enrichment of any people in this country. Here's how you fix South Africa. Remove BEE, remove EE, and remove AA. Why? Because it's stupid. There are 5.8 million white people in South Africa, of which the working population is 2.1 million. Even if you removed every single white person from the workforce, you closed all jobs for white people, you would bring black unemployment from 28 million to 26 million. There are every single year added almost 600,000 new people to the workforce. The majority of them are black. South Africa is currently creating less than 100,000 jobs per year. Within 4 years, you will have replaced the number of black people in the unemployment sector that you removed by giving all of those jobs to black people and having white people without jobs. There is no point to the BEE, affirmative action, employment equity craze. White people are not taking your jobs. There's not enough white people to take the jobs. It is the government that is destroying the jobs. It is the government that is to blame for the economy not growing. If we don't start blaming the government, and that includes the DA, because while they would desperately like you to believe that they're just in the GNU for you, they're part of this government now. And John Steenhuisen himself has implemented a number of BE initiatives in the agricultural sector of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, hit the like if you liked, just if you didn't. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the DA's new plan. Do you think it's going to work? Do you disagree with me on what I have to say? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members for continuing to support this channel. To become a patron, link in the description down below or join button right below this video. Any and all contributions are always very much appreciated. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.